applicant for a couple of months, but of course it's the board's document, so they've been working through edits to that draft, and I think we're just about completed with the final edits. After that process is complete, obviously there will be the finding statement, and then all the actual review starts. So the first stage will be the town and the village will have to decide on annexation. The land is obviously in the town right now. Before it can proceed as a project, it would need to be annexed to the village. So that would be the first big review period with both the town board and the village board to make that decision. And then I think if that proceeds, then it would come back around to the village planning board once it's actually in the village for to review the subdivision and site plan. So does that about cover where we are?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I did have a question. I wasn't on the board back then, and just curious, why did the village become the lead agency since the property's in the town?
I assume because if the project proceeds, it will be in the village. If it doesn't get annexed, it's not. It would have to be reworked. So so I think the reason is that if it does proceed as it's envisioned right now, I don't think the town planning board would have any review of it because it would come into the village and then the village planning board would be the approving agency.
What video?
Let's hold on.
I have my video.
Yes. Excuse me, can you mute yourself, please? And could you turn off your camera? Thank you.
Just in addition, when this first came to us and there was a discussion about who would be lead agency, there was a feeling on our board that we would want to be co-lead agency because of the situation. And we were told that wasn't possible, so we went to the village. So it went to the village because the project would eventually be in the village.
Our questions in,
Okay, so yeah, would you like to just?
well, thank you. Thanks for meeting with us. Appreciate it. Most of us, I think all of us, have reviewed the FEIS. I put together questions that were asked by the board members, and then we have other comments that we like to try and get in toward the end of the meeting. But
Do you have a copy of that?
I do like to.
No, I have one, and I want to have one here as well. I'm sorry, apologies for interrupting.
Okay, and these are just notes, they're not official anymore.
Thank you.
So, the first, I think, 4 or 5 questions have to do with affordable housing, which is a big topic on the FEIS. And some of us were concerned about the answers that came in from the FEIS and whether or not we will advocate for a final draft. I have some thoughts, and I'm also on the Village Affordable Housing Board, so I know a little bit about affordable housing, but other people have asked questions as well. So one of the things the applicant states is that they received information from the county that the generally proportioned away for affordable housing is 70% for 1 bedroom, 20% for 2 bedroom, and 10% for 3 or more bedrooms. That is not what New Paltz needs. I don't know that those were data and statistics. But New Paltz needs family housing, family with children. And I'm worried, and so are some of the other board members, that 1-bedroom apartments may be a way to have less bedrooms available because the affordable housing units are units. So if they, for example, give a 3-bedroom unit, they're giving away 2 more bedrooms to affordable housing. And those numbers should be pretty much backwards, right? We should probably get 70% 2-bedroom, 20% 3 or more bedrooms, and 10% 1-bedrooms. So that's one of the concerns. It was an answer on the FEIS. It was questioned. It was kind of going around and around, and the answers were not really clear.
Should we respond to these point by point, or do you want to just go?
I mean, how about if I go to the affordable housing question?
Okay, sure.
And then maybe you can address those altogether. So, the applicant uses a very broad definition of family, which is fine, because there is no standard family anymore. Which, you know, may or may not be people related by blood. However, renting out by the room does not constitute a family. And so that, you cannot have family housing if you're renting out by the room. So if you have 4 people to I don't know what, to a unit, that's really 4 different units, because they're not pooling their rent, they're not, you know, doing those things together. So it's not, the spirit of the definition is not met by what they're saying. The applicant discusses, I mean, you have this with me, the applicant discusses with the Affordable Housing Committee, oh, yes, so I was at this meeting, the Affordable Housing Committee, that there would be a section for family housing. As I understand it, I may be wrong, but they're now saying that this is discriminatory. And I would say, if a student wants to live amongst the family housing, well, then fine, it wouldn't be discriminatory. But and it should be permitted, of course. And that would satisfy the suggestion of discrimination. However, a section with a play area, the school bus pickup, or drop off, that should be incorporated and should be done. Because we're talking about families with children, that's the need in the laws. The next question / statement is, the entire design of all of the houses are 1 person per bedroom. They say that a few times, 1 person per bedroom. That does not make for family housing. So if you have a couple, that's 2 people per bedroom. If you have a couple with a child, that's a 2-bedroom apartment. If you have more than that, so this 1 person per bedroom. And what I'm hoping, I got the drift from what I heard, was that the applicant is saying that all of the affordable housing units have to be equal. And by equal, I hope they don't mean 1 person per bedroom. I think what the law says is they need to be equal in the types of materials that are used, the appliances that they receive, and all of that. So 1 person per bedroom needs to be adjusted, as well as how many 2 and 3 bedroom units. Okay. That's, I think, where we're at with the affordable housing, and if you'd like to comment, I know it's a lot.
Can I ask a question? Is it possible for us to just, in terms of this being a final edit, making our observations to you for the final edits without having a back and forth, so that we can get everything in, because there's some real concerns? And, you know, this is really for you rather than for us as answers, or we have to have answers.
I would like to at least have a small discussion on that. And where you guys fall in with that. And have you considered that? I don't know if you've considered it even.
Yeah, we've considered all these issues and had discussions about them. You know, we were also concerned about the distribution of units, and Mike pulled these statistics for all the you know, people on the waiting list for affordable housing, and it matched this breakdown. So based on the current need, the current need is for single bedroom affordable units. So
I can expand on that. 70 of the affordable housing list, which was provided to me minus names, I just saw numbers. 75% on the waiting list are 1 person households, 25%. Please let me finish. 2% are 25%. If you do 25% of 2 person households, 5% of 3, 4, and 5. That's the hard data of the list.
And I understand that, but I will also say that when people call for affordable housing, many of them are discouraged when they find out there's a list of 70 and 80 people ahead of them. And they don't, and consequently, they don't put in those applications, especially if it's a family who needs housing soon. So single people often can wait longer. I don't think that list is necessarily the most accurate to look at.
could I ask just a little context? I just want to make sure we're oriented to the fact that the stage we're in right now is the environmental impact statement. So we're looking at like major environmental impacts, you've done these. And things that need to be mitigated. I think a lot of these comments would be really well submitted during the site plan process, because that's when we're gonna be getting into the details of the actual units and arrangement on the site and everything. It's really a conceptual plan that we're reviewing right now.
No, I
So-
understand, and the only reason a lot of these you brought up were taken from answers that were given on the FEIS.
I hear
So
you.
these are the answers to the questions on the FEIS. And you're going to approve the FEIS in some form. So if you think those answers are adequate, that's one thing. I mean, it doesn't appear that our board feels that they're adequate answers.
I think we do want to complete the process of having a final EIS, and at the same time, it doesn't bind any of the details that are in there to be accepted and approved in the context of the site plan. Because site plan review is where many of these details are going to be revisited in lots of different ways. The affordable housing mix, for example, I think if the developer had their way, it probably would have said what they wanted to say, which is that we'll comply with the law, right? Less information, because the idea is that we're going to work these issues out in detail. So your feedback and the input's really helpful, and it's very aligned with a lot of what we've heard from the community and from our own feedback. And I don't think any of us should have the impression that if we don't work out details right now, then they're going to be accepted in an application, which is going to be a long, detailed.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying, you wanna get through the EIS. But you are willing to accept answers because they won't count later on, you're willing to accept answers that may not be what you want, or that may or may not have been satisfactorily answered from public comments. Right, because I think the FEIS addresses questions that we asked before.
Yeah.
And you want those answers to be answered.
Well, I think maybe it's possible that you might have a different impression of some of the answers, or maybe the members of the board, or maybe even some of us might have different impressions or adjustments to some of the answers that are within the bounds of a reasonable response from the applicant. I think that one of the things that you might not have the pressure and responsibility of is that this FEIS has been in iterative form with open public comments for almost 90 days now. And so we've gone through a lot of those points, and I don't want to dismiss your contribution to them. But there may be things in there that could have been a little more adequately explained, or could have been adjusted. I mean, the response that we just got for this one is important. If it came from documentation. So I want to actually know where we're going with this, whether we're trying to get an agreement between these two boards, or whether we can decide that what we feel the input we put into the FEIS is adequate and move forward. Because we're not gonna, even if you and I agree on this, we can make that comment and get it into, not necessarily you and I, these two boards agree on a point. We can make that comment and try to integrate it into the FEIS. And it still is going to be open for a very lengthy discussion in the process of site plan.
Understood, but I think our feeling was the FEIS should be as accurate as possible, that's all.
May I suggest that we just kind of go through the rest of the comments, and then the board can think about whether that leads them to anything that they want to change in the FEIS, because you just need to keep it moving.
So I'm gonna just skip over to the bank parking. 612 rooms, the R3 says 1 space per bedroom. It's 423 spaces, and it's over 200 banks parking spaces, which seems like a lot. I mean, so 66% of the rooms have parking, not 100% or 90% or 80%. So it just seems like a lot of bank spaces, and I think that needs to be addressed with better than 66% or 66% of the R3. Also, one of our applicants, one of our top 49 is not here. and someone else, also two of our board members say that there is, no soils and materials management plan, even though it's referred to, unless they can't look at it, and how will that be monitored? So I'm not sure that it's something we missed. Said something about the list of appendices have changed and it's confusing.
I can say problem. There was no information in the appendices on the draft that I was.
Right, and the final, it will say see appendix and then you move forward and it's there.
Yeah.
Were those appendices in the,
Original,
Yeah.
they didn't change, they probably didn't.
Not in that.
It's might be a run as we got.
Well, this, it's just, this board member said he didn't see it anywhere.
We'll check that, yeah.
Other than it said that they were going to go above and beyond in their, the way they manage soils.
Yeah, there wasn't a detailed plan, as I recall, I just said. But see, I think that the problem with it is that they feel that as long as they're within legal constraints, I mean, there have been pesticides been applied on that land for decades. And the applicant feels that, well, it was legal, but of course, that doesn't mean it's not toxic, because the law always takes a while to catch up with the regulation of the environment, so. The chemicals were just as poisonous when they were legal as they were when they were illegal. And there is a lot of evidence that shows that this type of contaminated soil has effects on, you know, a lot of the population, but especially developing babies. And there should be some kind of monitoring program. Unfortunately, we don't, it's like not in our jurisdiction as the planning board. Like, we don't, I don't know what, someone help me, I don't know how we can check up on that.
I mean, they do reference the soil and materials management plan, so we'll confirm that that's in there.
Yeah, okay, because we had a big project before us, that we never actually came to fruition, but they were going through a lot, they were digging up a lot of soil, they were going through a lot, it's the same thing, it was a former appellate. So, you know, not seeing anything is concerning. Okay, the rest of the questions that I have, we can send in, and maybe we can answer them without talking to them. There are a couple of people, you know, that want to say other things. Oh yeah, let me just ask you. This is out of the FEIS. Will there be town oversight on the project after annexation, do you know?
Town oversight of,
I mean, I know that you agreed to the town wetlands law. But I'm just curious to know if there will be town oversight at all, considered after annexation.
Did you get the report from the town wetlands inspector? I haven't seen it yet, I was looking for it.
It's in there.
It's in there.
yeah,
Sorry, I'm having trouble finding it. So did you get it? No, there was a recent one.
No, it's in our internal planning board.
Okay, but they should probably have it.
yeah, the town wetlands inspector went out and.
I got it from the town wetlands inspector, so I'm assuming he.
No, I know you agreed to that, but I just didn't know if there was any plans to have any other oversight from the town or to any of the other town regulations other than that.
I don't think we have a plan to follow town regulations, we would be following the village zoning, but of course. Town would be an involved agency and we would be taking input from lots of different agencies.
Okay.
Do you have an engineer that would be making sure they're dotting their i's and crossing that t, doing everything?
We have lots of consultants that are, yes.
Or they,
We do.
We do. Dennis Larios is who we use for the village.
and he'll be hired for this.
He's hired for every project.
Oh.
that we review.
Well, I actually didn't see very much from him other than.
Because this hasn't been submitted to him yet because it's not site plan. Okay,
Okay.
He had a lot of comments on the.
I just came in May,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, I only saw one, but you know, I'll keep looking.
Well, they weren't necessarily in the like public comment, that was.
No,
when
I
the
went
board
back
was-
to the, I mean, whatever I got on the website, whatever information it was, I only saw one thing from Larios, but okay. And then, just quick little questions and then I think we can turn on to Jane. You know, the hiring an architect for this project?
He probably should, yes. their response to the inability to put solar panels on the rooftops is that the buildings weren't oriented correctly, and of course, they haven't been built yet, so if they're not oriented correctly.
We have a great architect.
Who's supposed to do that?
Anyway. And, I mean, of course, the big question of annexation, which, you know, some of us kind of thought was done. That this was done and we're not quite there yet, right? Why? Oh, this is a big question. Why doesn't the village just sell the water to this project? Why do you need, but it's a question, why do you need for the annexation? So, you don't know,
It's
none
not
of
something the village, I mean, it's the way the applicants, you
Yeah.
know, it's proposed.
I think it's a combination of the sewer connections, the water. I'm sure there were lots of good reasons that.
And I mean, it's a huge, alright, so I think those are the only ones that are appropriate.
Yeah, but there's no, there's no, in the FBI's, it's kind of strange that they're providing sewer and water to the large project. But the two houses there are exempt and remain in the town, and there's no sewer and water going to those two poor houses. But that's neither here nor there, it's just one of the odd things.
Okay, so we're gonna run out of time. Jane, I know, has got some things that she wasn't able to get to me, so I'm gonna let her. You have something additional, so, okay.
I'm gonna keep it very brief. These are, for in the, spirit of contributions for the fine thing. I noticed when I was reading that the FES is described as a public-private partnership. Yet there are only listed 3 LLCs, and we don't actually know if this is a government plus private partnership, who we are partnering with, because the LLCs are not transparent. So I think for the sake of transparency and to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest, I think any individual who is an actual owner and in the LLCs should be listed in this as one of the owners. So I think that should be, the village residents need to know this. So that's one thing. The other thing I think that is surprised me very much is that the entire justification on this is based on pre-COVID data. The data comes from a Hudson Valley Pattern of Progress report from 2020. Everything has changed so much, and yet there is information reference from a March 2024 County Housing Action Fund. There is current data available. If they're going to put data in the FEIS, I do think it should be updated, especially considering that this is pre-COVID data. Another thing is, as a village project, it is apparently possible anytime in the future for the village to provide the tax abatement of any amount to this housing project. And since the cash flow generated by the size of this could range from $500,000 to $1 million a month, I think it's important, again, for transparency and optics, to prohibit any future abatement on the project, and to make it very clear to the applicant that, you know, this is just not going to come down the pipe. I know that there are reasons behind this, but I do think, you know, that's another thing that's important, and I think that's something that's really hard to explain publicly, and it could sound, you know, again, it's an optics problem, and it could sound very negative. I think also I see a conflict in this, well, legal conflict in the definition of a single bedroom, which is an SRO, single room occupancy scheme, versus family, because of the Fair Housing Law, the federal Fair Housing Law definition of families. For example, you could say, they say, well, we're only having one person per bedroom. But if that is in a unit rather than a bedroom and a family, I can read you the pieces of the law. You can't discriminate against a family. Somebody could say, well, I want to put in bunk beds and I want my brother to live with me because he's part of my family and I'm allowed to do it. So then you can't guarantee a single person in the rooms. I think that has to be rationalized, because I think you're going to have a legal conflict there in some form between the affordable and just the way it is. I'll very quickly, and then I'm finished, read you it says in the sale and rental of housing, you cannot set different terms, conditions, or privileges for sale or rental of dwelling. Cannot make, print, or publish any notice, statement, or advertisement with respect to the sale or rental of a dwelling that indicates any preference, limitation, or discrimination. So, and then it says not assign a person to a particular building or neighborhood or section of a building or neighborhood. So those things, I mean, these are very broad, they're very loose. When they're broad, they're more difficult than if they were extremely specific. I know that from having had contracts written very broadly. So these are things I hope you'll take into account and that don't seem to be addressed in this at all. But I think thank you.
Lauren, thank you, I just want clarification, and I apologize for not knowing this. But when they asked about why annexing, I believe you said it's the way the applicant requested. So an applicant has a choice to annex from the town if they want to do a project, and that question.
They don't have, it's not just their choice, they can petition the town and the village to consider that annexation.
And then what is what is our process of making that decision?
Both the town and the village need to hold hearings and there's a set of criteria for annexation to decide whether it's in the best interest of the town and village.
The town board and.
Correct, sorry. Okay.
And it just feels a little bit like the cart before the horse, we were discussing, what if it was decided that it's not being annexed and now it's back?
That's exactly right, but the thing is with seeker is that you can't make any decision until the environmental review is done. So we have to finish this before those decisions can be considered. That's why it's definitely parking for the horse.
Okay.
If the annexation is approved, they would have to go through the whole process again with the town.
Of course. Yeah.
Correct.
With us, yeah.
And I,
Everybody.
Yeah.
Can you clarify that though? It's the boards and not the planning board?
Yes.
Who do
So
those?
two legislative boards, because they are the ones empowered to make those decisions.
And not a referendum by vote.
No,
The supervisor of the town of New Paltz is the chief financial officer. So they have to have that decision from the board, essentially from both, they have to have
yeah,
that
Yes.
decision
town board and
from
village.
the town.
Both boards would have to adopt a local law to annex the property. It's the similar thing that happened with Woodland Pond. So both boards will, once the seeker process is done, both boards will, and I don't know if they consider it separately, jointly, I'm sure it's something they
Yeah.
can do it together.
The state statute
Yeah.
lays out
Yeah,
the
there's a-
process.
Yeah,
And they hold their own public hearings separate from, and then when and if that occurs, then it would come back to the board for site plan.
So there will be public hearings to discuss.
At least two more times.
That's good, idea.
and then in terms, I'm confused about the subdivision because this is being divided into the three different lots and. Ones that are not being developed is from or made in town, so then how does that subdivision process?
I don't know if boundary lines are changing on those. So the
Isn't it one single lot now?
no,
Oh,
it's multiple lots,
we had
so
given,
those lots are not changing.
correct.
Oh,
we had given them a subdivision before this all started.
okay.
There was a certain subdivision that our town board did for him.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, you have anything for us? We made it in a half hour.
Do you have an extra copy of it?
I do.
Thanks for writing it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will definitely put in these and. It's done.
My comments weren't included, but I'm happy to against them.
And you should each know that the attorney, the land use attorney for the applicant is on the call too, so really, I'm sure.
As is the planner.
Okay.
So they're recording all the things and I think that lots of it, because the FEIS that you would have been seeing. Didn't include all the comments that have been made by the public and by us, and there's a lot of overlap.
So I did see the latest one that was decided, from the beginning was the 10 to 15%. I was on our original comments, but that happened, so. Okay, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your taking the time to meet with us.
The first thing on our agenda is further discussion with them, so by all means, please stay at It's your choice.
You need to adjourn your meeting?
Yeah, we need to adjourn the joint.
Oh, we do.
meeting, and-
Yes.
Yeah.
You wanna make a motion?
Well, yeah. Motion to adjourn the joint meeting,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask a brief favor? Would each of you mind just writing your name so I get correct spelling, just on the bottom of the pad there? Thank you very much. Or if you know everybody.
We know everybody. So many calls.
You can just write it. Yeah, that's perfect. Just so I can include them in the minutes. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Really?
Okay. Well, that's.
Yeah, I'm gonna, it's the same Zoom link, so we'll just keep rolling and you can, but it's a.
How do you adjourn?
Okay,
Did
so I
you-
can just get started.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh. I forgot.
I know, I got it, I only got it in.
No, it's my fault. I couldn't-
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had it.
okay, if anybody needs it, I can run it.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Village of New Paltz Planning Board. Tonight we have a slightly different order in that we will start with the review of BB 21AX, New Paltz Apartments, NDIS, and then do our administrative business and public comment and other application reviews.
Can you just announce Nikki for us?
Yes. Tonight, one of our regular members is absent, so Nikki Nielsen will be joining us as a full member.
Thank you.
Great, so let's pull up the latest red line here, and would the applicant or someone online be able to just maybe talk through some of the more significant changes that we might not have thought?
When did this, is this something more recent than I already have? For the FBI?
The red line from September 3rd.
Is there something?
This is like August 5th. I don't know if you are looking at the.
The latest version is dated as of the date that it arrived.
Which I believe is 9/3, right?
It's not in a folder.
It is in the folder.
Is it? No, it should be in that BIS folder. You know, always just click the link and get that.
It took
I mean,
me,
you have-
yeah, I did, it took me to the DEI.
Not sure what to say. It worked for me, but you can find it in the planning board folder.
It's the one labeled FEIS red line 90903, and it's in the FEIS folder.
Margaret, gonna be able to make some hard copies if people want.
Yeah, they submit this only electronically, so.
For the next one.
Yeah, well, when we get to done with all the red line changes, yes, we will have hard copies for that. It's in the drive, it says FEIS.
Rachel, I just shared it with you, so we can see it in the email.
Oh, no,
So.
go to the beginning.
Well, but.
I don't know.
So Rich just shared it to me, so just what you were reading.
As right as that.
It's great.
doing it exactly the way I was told it was done, so I don't know if there's, I need to be doing something different, I'm happy to, but.
Okay. So,
Can you get me over there?
Set us up that.
well,
So.
I'd like to just go through the letter that was provided along with the red line version of the full file, and maybe we can just briefly go through those comments and make sure that you know, all of the responses are acceptable. So
I would put in iBooks.
okay.
I don't know. It's in the planning board draft.
Where, how do I access the planning board?
Okay, I'm sorry, this isn't really the time for.
I can't, I can't.
We had 2 weeks to look at this, if you had difficulty accessing it, we should have reached out.
I don't know, I was looking at it, open up and then you know, there.
Okay, so. The first comment was,
Rachel, I'll send you a link to the drive.
Still can't open.
No, I'm gonna send you a link to the drive, not the document.
does everyone have in front of them
I have.
the letter? So. First of all, we had Terry Nolan's comments about affordable housing. And let's see. We have some updates to the FEIS. Maybe can you just briefly speak about those changes that were made regarding affordable housing?
Can Zena hear us, Mike?
I think she can, yeah.
Yes, so thank you, everyone. This is
Okay,
It's
so
not
it's quiet, I see, sorry about that.
Try speaking now, Zena.
Hello, everyone. This is Zena. Can you hear me?
There you go.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. So at the last meeting, the board discussed whether or not we should continue calling the project just affordable housing, or excuse me, a student housing project, or if we should combine that and include multifamily housing to go along with that. So it's a little clearer and more succinct that we are serving everyone, families and students as well, through this project. So the FEIS on page 2, the red line change indicates that the FEIS has been revised to reflect that this is now a student and multifamily housing project. And that's throughout the document.
Victory.
Are some of the units being offered as unfurnished then, or are they still all furnished and with each individual having room having bathroom?
I mean, again, I'd rather not
Okay.
put that in the FEIS, I think that's. Reflection.
That's like de facto, if they actually changed it.
Okay, so. Well, it's not a secret, it doesn't need to be in the.
I think everyone's asking.
You would change it
Everybody
to
wants to
make
know, if they know, they should just tell us. That's all I'm saying, I don't think Rachel's wrong.
But point of order, I have a question here, because we're talking about the EIS, which is not the site plan review. And what you're locked into here is the environmental impact rather than the configuration of the actual rooms themselves, because that is going to be another layer of review after we get to the point where there's 2 public hearings and 2 separate board votes on annexation.
So I don't disagree that at some point we should know what those configurations are, but in terms of our time and the purpose of this document, I don't think that is the level of detail that serves anyone and doesn't take the right amount of time.
That also was what we requested them to do at the last meeting, or the last meeting we met with them, was to change it to student and multifamily. That was the wording we requested. I have the notes from what we
I see, it's
said.
just changing the word, but not
Yeah.
the plan, okay, I will.
Okay. So next, I want to just ask about the wetlands survey. Were there any changes to the FEIS based on that on-site inspection from August?
No, the
Rich,
town wetland, the town wetland inspector confirmed our JD and the conclusions of the JD and confirmed that we would require a permit for what a little bit of an ephemeral wetland we would be disturbing to install culverts for the trail that will go to the campus. And the culverts are designed so that it still allows for the flow of water and also for habitat corridors.
Okay, so the area above the culvert is a grading of some kind? So that the water comes through, because the critters can't cross unless their passage is wet. So if you make a culvert, if you make a critter crossing, it has to be able to receive water from the rain.
Right.
It's the only way they can cross.
We'll follow whatever the standards are and the requirements are of the permit that we pull. I'm not too familiar with it, so I don't want to speak out of turn. But the ephemeral portion of the wetland means that it's mostly dry throughout the season and not necessarily wet. So it's not a very active wet portion of the wetland itself. But it is currently where the farm roads are that cross over the wetland areas. So those sites were selected purposefully so that we were not disturbing the more active portions of the wetlands. We're in the ephemeral portions of the wetlands. So the culverts will be designed and permitted according to state regulations.
Okay. And let's see, I guess next there was a comment from Amy about the one person per bedroom. Let's see. Oh, in regard to the, I guess, the sewer use.
Well, there's
So-
a lot of reasons why it was messed up. Number one, it has to do with the parking calculation. Number two, it has to do with the sewer calculation. Number three, families often, we discussed this in the town, brought this up just now. Married couples, cohabitating couples, and children, when they live in families, often children share bedrooms, there's a larger family in an apartment. So one person per bedroom just doesn't really make sense in a lot of ways. And it just doesn't seem like something that could be regulated. Or something that's actually natural.
If I recall, I think the sewer use is by the unit or by the bedroom, it's not by the person. Is that what Zena had told us?
Yes, that's correct. So when you're calculating what the demand is, it's based on bedrooms. Not the number of people per bedroom, but bedroom, by the bedroom. So that's the number that's used to calculate demand. And then there's also a factor of safety that's added in there. We used a factor of 4. So the demand.
She put like. Out of here. Everyone.
If you're online, can you please mute yourself? Thank you.
Thank you. So as was explained at the last meeting that we were at, there's the sewer demand calculations are based on the number of bedrooms. Then there's also a factor that's built into that to account for fluctuations and, if there are more people on campus or less people on campus, so that we're never at a point where the demand exceeds what the systems are capable of managing. And those are the numbers that we worked with the town or the village consultant on, and those are the numbers that were decided on. And they were also based on the original size of the project. Now that we've downsized it, the demand is even less.
I have a related question though, which is, does the reference in the document that described that there would only be one habitant per bedroom still remain sort of a global description of how a bedroom can be used? And I think that besides the way it's used for calculation, which I can get, it's probably some kind of blended average of how many people occupy a room. But this idea that if it's a multifamily housing, if it's a student and multifamily housing facility, you couldn't limit one person per bedroom. So is that still a global reference in the document, and should that be removed then?
No, so at the last meeting, we were asked to clarify that the rental by bedroom would be only for the student housing. The rental by unit would be regarding the multifamily or student housing would be by the bedroom, affordable housing would be by the unit. We're following the definition per the village law that says that affordable housing is rented by the unit, that those are not rented by the bedroom. And we did clarify that in the letter, and we also clarified that throughout the FEIS.
Thank you. I appreciate the explanation. It's a lot of material, so I admit to missing things.
Understood.
Now, okay, in this letter, there's also a lot of discussion about the financial impacts and the cost per call of like a rescue squad call or police call. It's not clear to me if the FEIS was like, or any of the appendices were updated with those numbers. Is that was that changed?
Yes, it was. I think one of the board members caught there was a math error, and we changed that in the letter and also in the FEIS.
Okay. I have a follow-up comment about that, and thank you for the change that you just mentioned. My follow-up comment on that is on page, I'm cross-referencing letters I have in front of me and also online, making sure it's the same one. Yeah. In terms of the way that Cameron calculates the call volume, I saw that there's this very specific response that says we are only considering calls that come from dormitory premises as opposed to calls that might come from other locations on campus, because your representation is that the facility is only a residence, and so therefore that should be the specific criteria for what might inform a call. And as I think about that theory, and I think about the pool, the fitness center, and the laundry room, and common areas, and the trail, I think that it's not valid to think that you would only use the call calculation from a dormitory room if in fact there are many different types of common areas. As a matter of fact, some that actually could be sources of risk, not in a bad way, but in a things happen in these locations. So I don't know that it's within the place where we are right now in the FEIS to ask Cameron to redo all the calculations based on that. But I do want to make sure it's acknowledged that I don't agree with narrowing the focus of the call volume to only those that originate in a dorm.
Do we have any data on how
Perhaps,
many calls?
perhaps we should have to compare it to a place like Southside. A place that's heavily populated with students, that also has school, that's a little separate from the communities, that also has spaces in the area. Instead of just focusing on dorms, I mean, maybe it's more like apples to apples, if you look around the town and find something a little more similar. Take a look.
But again, I think, Mike, I really would appreciate if that comment be recorded, but I don't necessarily believe it requires us to redo the Cameron study before the OPIS can be considered complete.
Yeah, I'm struggling to see how we could get that data in time to incorporate it into this document.
I'm not requesting that we do. I'm only requesting that we acknowledge that while your research is thorough, there might be more than one premise on which the board would like to continue to examine. I don't even know if that's a legal way to say it, but it's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
I think that's certainly something we could take into consideration for the next phase, and when we're doing site plan, we can get some more data on the south side. Other common areas.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and then other. Let's see. Other comments in the letter.
So the comments and responses going to be an actual part of the FAIS when it's complete.
Yeah, and I mean. A lot of the responses are reflected in changes in the text, part of the document, through. Let's see, some of the language changes, yes. Discuss that change.
Zach, may I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Given it just came up with the members of the town planning board. The number of parking details must remain as part of the seeker is question 24 on page 10. Then the response of the FEIS plan identifies the number of parking spaces have been reduced by 140 spaces to 422 spaces, but that reduction represents spaces that are land, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is that clear in that response? It just says has been reduced and not.
Yeah. I mean, Tina, those are all land banks, correct?
There's a portion of them that are land banked, yes. We don't want to overdevelop parking, only develop what we need.
We totally agree. I mean, I totally agree with the idea of land banking spaces. I just want to make sure that the number that are required by code is clear. The number that you're proposing to build in the initial development is clear, and then the differential is clear that they're land banked.
Yes,
And
that's
in this
identified
case,
on.
just said that the spaces have been reduced by 140 spaces, not land banked. It doesn't use the term at all in the response.
Right, I'll try to find that, but it's in the site data table on the site plan itself. It's broken down by the number of spaces that we're providing and the number that we're land banking.
Yeah, and if the questions and responses are part of the document, then it should be aligned.
Correct.
Understood. Thank you. So it's question 24 on page 10.
Okay.
Second, building off that, the question that was asked is, who would initiate the land banking to actually be built? And I admit, I don't know the answer to that. That might be a question.
My suggestion is we would determine a process by which we assess usage and determine whether there's a need and open them up incrementally in lots of some sort, not unlike a very smaller scale, but like if it was Zero Place, we had that idea of assessing parking and determining whether changes are opening up. I think it would have to be,
Who monitors that?
It would be a condition, I think, of the
will
approval.
definitely be a
Of the
condition.
officer could-
So they have to report, say quarterly or semi-annually or something, the experience they're having in terms of parking and availability. And if there's always spots available, they, at the level they're built, then it would not be required, but as soon as there's some sort of need or evidence that it reaches 90% regularly, then we might require the land bank release. But it would be dictated in the
So we
process.
come back to our board and.
Probably not. It would be a process would auto trigger the need to release.
Or go through the building department.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
And that makes sense.
that doesn't need to be described in this document though, correct?
Nope.
Okay. Were there any other aspects of the comments that were raised from the meeting that you also want to address, like for example, the soil and materials management plan, is that
I found it in the.
Yeah.
TEIS.
Actually, that's what I was gonna comment is there's a number of appendices in the DEIS that are not in the FEIS, and then, so Zena, that may be a question for you. Those appendices that are in the DEIS that weren't commented on in the FEIS, how will they be incorporated into the final document?
In the very opening portion of the FEIS, it refers to the DEIS in reference. You can either, according to seeker, you can refer to the DEIS or you can include it as an appendices. And since we've been doing everything electronically, if you will, putting things on the website, it's probably easier to post the FEIS and the DEIS and leave the appendices in the DEIS.
We should have a final package that's.
Yeah, I think we would want them in the final package
Yeah.
rather than just a reference, and you know, the question is a good one because those sections of the DEIS that weren't spoken about in the FEIS did indeed go away. And there is overlap of the labeling, you've got an F in the DEIS and an F in the FEIS, so
Right.
somehow to fix that would be great.
Yep. We'll keep the reference in the FEIS, but when I send it to the village, I'll include the FEIS with its own appendices, and I'll also include the DEIS as a separate appendix.
That will work, thank you.
You're welcome.
Zena, I'm sorry, but will that make it clear which of the appendices from the DEIS is final and which have been revised?
So the appendices in the DEIS are all of the original consultant reports. The
Right.
appendices in the FEIS are only, for example, the transcripts of the public hearings.
Oh, I see, it's
Public
different type
comments,
of.
different types of appendices.
There's no overlap with the two
Got it,
documents.
There is no overlap, no, and there were no changes in the DEIS as a result of comments that we received on the FEIS. So they're really two separate documents. I prefer to keep them separate if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're gonna give us responses to everything that was brought up by the town board just now, the town planning board?
Inside the comment period.
yeah, I think that most of these things are addressed in the FEIS. I know a lot of the affordable housing questions are there. You know, questions about renting by the unit versus room. Banking, yeah.
They wanted a list of the owner of the LLC. Commented on the data being recorded. They wanted to, have some sort of prohibition of a possible future tax abatement. I'm just, that's what they, so the things they brought up, so. I'm just wondering if they're gonna be addressed or not, and you say it's too late, is that what you're telling me?
Well, I think we just need to look at the FEIS that's in front of us and see if there are parts of that that need to be revised, you know, some of those questions can be.
Well, for example,
addressed
the
later.
pre-COVID data. If there is available data that's more recent, we could ask them to please include the more recent data as well, or instead of the pre-COVID data.
Let me just say that the data comes from, this application was made during COVID. The data comes from the COVID period and post-COVID period. Zena, am I correct?
That's correct.
Especially the updates.
Yes, so we have to remember this process started over 3 years ago, so we could only use data that was available at the time. So when you're going through an environmental impact statement, it's not commonplace to constantly update your data. So we do the best that we can throughout the process to make sure that we're presenting the most accurate data. So the older data that you're talking about could have been related to traffic, which there are always factors that are built into that are approved by the state and by your consultant. The water and sewer demand, same thing, approved by your consultant. So there haven't been any major changes. There are factors that are used to compensate for COVID itself that are standard now. And we've done the best that we can to make sure that the most up-to-date data is what we're providing to you now in the FEIS. But we were also asked to do additional research in the FEIS, and that's why some of the dates are more recent than some of the older ones.
We can all feel comfortable and we would be permitted to ask for further analysis of the traffic impact at any point that we are trying to assess the driveways, the traffic patterns around the property. We could always say, we're not sure that we have enough information to get that. I think what we have to date is adequate to keep all of it out.
Data just seems to be in conflict with reality when you're actually trying to drive some new thoughts, but.
Can I just, again, a procedural point in terms of data refresh, because it can't be the case that an extended process means you never update it. So when would be the next update? Would it be at the site plan review? Would it be, I mean, obviously, the FEIS, DIS at some point needs to be static. And I appreciate the point that you can't just constantly update it, but we also can't look at projects and approve them based on things that are outdated. And I mean, Terry has made this point a couple of times, you know, university enrollments are declining, and that may impact this kind of project. So we would want to know at what point do those things happen?
So we're in the midst of the environmental review, so if you feel that you don't have enough data to decide, you know, that the environmental impact has been mitigated, that is the thing to measure right now. We'll be getting to the site plan later, as you know. The environmental review is never like closed, like you can't go back. If something changes, you can always reopen it and do a supplemental environmental impact statement.
Like what kind of thing will change to do that?
If either conditions in the village change or if the project changes.
It's a pretty high standard, but the point made about the data is a good one, because under seeker and site plan, some of the same issues are endemic to site plan. They're part of the site plan, and traffic is one of them. So you can always look at traffic. You can't, an applicant can't say to you, we have an FEIS and finding statement on the traffic. Because it's, the case law is clear that it pertains to site.
Yeah, when you're reviewing your site plan, you would have every right to ask for a new traffic study. send it to your traffic consultant to review based on the hard data right there. And Amy, to answer your question, say there's a new, and this is a very off the wall example, but say a new 1,000-unit place opened up in New Paltz between now and then, highly unlikely. But if that were to happen, then perhaps the data that they provided is no longer accurate because it's not taking those changes into, but just small changes here and there is not enough to ask for a new review. And you can also pick one topic, say something changes drastically on traffic. You could reopen a supplemental FEIS on traffic only. So you have, there's a lot of options.
So you're suggesting that this board could open up a supplemental EIS if we're unhappy or if we see a big change in New Paltz?
You would have to have good reason to, don't take it that
No,
you
just,
can
I'm just
do.
trying to.
Absolutely, but the
I'm not
answer is-
suggesting that we should do that.
No, I'm just saying the answer is yes, you could, if something substantially changed. Between now, if you adopt this,
So before you approve the
before you
project.
approve the project, something substantially changes. Say, for example, it takes 5 years to get through annexation, and you finally get this. I'm thinking of sort of unrealistic, but to give you a perspective. If down the road, when this comes to you for site plan, you go, you know, that data that we looked at in the FEIS, it's not up to date. You can request a supplemental for the sections that are not up to date. You can't.
They can
I guess you
also,
could do
they could
all-
also request the information and reopen seeker
Right.
for a limited purpose of a negative declaration.
Yeah.
There's
just
a lot of
decide that
flexibility.
it's-
There's a lot of possibilities of what you can do. So. It's just to sort of guide you that. If you decide that this FEIS is complete. You're gonna get multiple chances to review the data again. Both during site plan and if it's a significant enough change, potentially with a review of the EIS.
And the traffic engineers have us build in a multiplier to the numbers. So that is in there now. So the question would be, is that number still valid when you get to that point? It's like, so.
So I have a question from the beginning. We've had numerous comments and people on the board requesting more use of solar panels. I understand you built a separate array. But the reason that you gave for not putting them on the roofs was because of the orientation of the buildings. And I
That's one of
thought,
the reasons.
well, I found it to be somewhat an inadequate answer because you're orienting the buildings, they're shaped in a square. How is it that at least half of those roofs aren't good?
I mean, personally, I wouldn't say that it's just the reorienting of the building, but I think it aesthetically doesn't look anywhere near as nice as the buildings look without the panels on them. I mean, we were tasked with doing a full visual impact, which we did, and we put, people asked for solar, we put solar into the project, and it was fairly expensive to do. So we can't do everything.
And you state that the project will be 100% electric. Correct, and that solar array will be able to power all of the common areas or?
You know,
Yes.
common areas, right? At the
Yes.
site.
All of the common areas, yes.
You know, you could correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I remember too, one of the other reasons that either you or Tom stated. Was to build the roadways around the siting the homes first in order to get maximum solar benefit would lead to more pervious pavement. Was that correct?
I don't remember that statement.
Okay, I think I remember it, but I could be wrong.
Were there any other items in the red line that board wanted to discuss or?
I had a question about, you say you're still gonna be spraying pesticides on the orchards in the vicinity of the, development, and I'm wondering if you could give a list as to what those, cause you say what.
So the orchards are going to be sprayed approximate to this to this project.
Oh, I thought I read that it was.
No, but we're gonna continue to farm the area, which is gonna be a conservation restricted area, but it is not gonna be apples. That's a guarantee.
Hay, it's hay,
It'll be hay.
and we're not gonna spray it.
Yeah, I don't wanna have any kind of, the spray is loud. It's into the spray. So, and a lot of times I'm spraying at, 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning, so. Those trees will be out of there and it'll all be hay, all of that field will be open.
Okay, but you still, you're saying there's no, there's not gonna be any more orchards in the vicinity of the project?
Now, the closest orchard to this project now will be on the other side of the road, past Bellaterra and halfway up the hill.
Yeah.
Towards the farm market. I have long way.
And I sort of one,
Yeah.
to follow up on the comment before in terms of disclosure of the beneficial owners and the public partnership that's described in the beginning. Is that something that can be put into the FEIS? I know that LLCs and public beneficial owner disclosures are still.
I mean, I've already disclosed several times here who Beautiful Monster LLC is. That's myself and my wife. Andrew's Wave LLC is John Mullen, and I believe his wife. I can't speak for Tom and the people that he's dealing with, but it's not a secret question. It's not even really relevant for the approval. I mean, seeker and land use deals with the use of land, not who owns or occupies it. So I think they would be perfectly within their rights to say it's proprietary. I live here, I'm a townie, an open book, so that's, I don't care myself.
Anyhow, you're just gonna sell it anyhow, as soon as the.
I'm gonna,
As soon as
if
you
you
get
mean,
the approval, you're
yeah.
gonna sell it to
Yeah.
Sarah, right?
I have no, like I said, no interest in the project.
Yeah, I think, the town is really concerned about that, that's something that they can ask for during annexation. Okay, any other sections that you need to look at this evening? Well, that probably will be in the machine management plan. Okay, it seems like board doesn't have any other questions at this time. I've reviewed the red line. I thought the text changes all looked okay. At this point, I'd like to see.
I have a few pieces of text I'm gonna change, it's a very small change.
Do you have those available?
It's, sort of the solar upfront. A couple more things, I will send them to you.
Okay.
I think I said
Well,
all,
I
I
mean-
did put them in, the ones
I think the board should agree on them before we
Oh, yes,
ask.
okay,
the-
sure.
Um,
Sure. I mean, I saw that they did make the other changes. I
right,
sent you 2 JPEGs.
um,
I just can't, like. I feel like. Yeah.
Well, I was going to suggest that we authorize a resolution to accept the FEIS. And so we could, at the next meeting, review the, final document and to vote on that resolution. So, ideally, the sooner we get those, the better. But if everyone's in agreement, I'd like to get a motion authorizing our attorney to draft a resolution to accept the FEIS.
Motion to authorize the attorney to accept the FEIS as amended by any of the immediate comments and changes that were made, including those tonight.
Yeah, of course, like the version that we would be accepting is not in front of us right now.
Right. Just drafted was.
Yeah,
You're mostly authorizing the attorney to draft the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
So,
1 second.
yes,
Include abstaining.
I'm just really not even sure yet, then I'm personally ready. I was told by the town that they're gonna send in some more questions, that's what Jane Chamber had said. So for me, I would like to see those questions in case it brings up anything else. This is our opportunity, this is our document, we put our names on it, so I don't feel comfortable 100%. I missed the last meeting, so it's partially my fault. But I would want another meeting to see those questions. And in case I feel like I need to ask more questions to feel more comfortable, but that's just me.
again,
But we're authorizing.
The motion is the vote.
We're not approving it, so I'm kind of feeling very wishy-washy anyway, so.
We're not voting yes on the resolution, we're just voting yes on drafting the resolution.
Right. Which is why I'm feeling very wishy-washy, because I'm not saying no, and I'm not saying yes, right, I'm just saying I'd like to see those questions come in case I'd like to find out some more answers, that's what I'm saying.
The motion is passed and
yeah,
Well,
and
Can I just do a roll call vote, because I'm not clear who voted yes and no, so. If you wouldn't mind, so Rachel,
I'm gonna defer to Amy, I think if she has doubts, we should always.
I'm just abstaining tonight.
so you're abstaining or no?
I'll abstain.
Rich,
yeah, it was my motion, yes.
Nikki,
Yes.
Amy,
I'm going to abstain tonight.
okay, and Zach.
yes.
Okay, so the motion passes with 3 yeses, no nays, and 2 abstentions.
I do think it's important to mention that, because I don't want there to be an impression that this is somehow proceeding at a rate that it shouldn't.
I'm not accused of
that.
that.
No, I'm not feeling accused. I'm speaking on behalf of my role on board. Even the members of the town planning board have been included in communications about this project and this project has been shared for, I don't know the exact number of days. But I don't think it's our obligation to hold it open any longer, because of the fact that this has been publicly available for comment and input for as long as it has. So that's the justification for, I think, at least moving to the resolution. I just want to say that for the record.
And in terms of the statute, we are beyond the date to accept still, but to make a decision on the final.
Speaking of the pitch perspective, Galaxy.
Well, I mean, we can still get those questions, we can get the resolution draft, and we can still incorporate that at this point, so everything's still open.
Yes, that is true. I would urge, all the board again to go through the current version of the FEIS and just be as comfortable as possible with it, so we could potentially vote,
But there's also, for the record, the planning board's an interested agency and they had. The project's they were part of this is the notice of intent to serve as lead agency that went out. They've known for over 3 years what the project was. They've come in now, it's very, very late in the process with, from what I heard, virtually identical questions to what we've answered many, many times before. And, you know, the public hearing process went on for, I believe,
You're surprised. What question you have?
Question,
Put it in your eyes.
Yes, it's how I was.